Who does Tiger hate more, Phil or Bryson?
Probably Phil. That's a good question. I haven't been asked that question yet. Uh, which is funny because I think that relationship between Tiger and Phil from the 5 year period between 2017 and 2022 was really good. It was the best it had ever been. I mean, these guys became friends, and I tried to relate it to the company that any of us would work in. And I often said that about Tiger and Phil, whereas Tiger and Phil were never really friends. They worked at the same company. They were never really friends. And after a while, you work for the same company for 20 years. You kind of look at the guy who's been there across the cubicle from you for 20 years. You go, hey man, we're kind of friends now. I mean, you and I have been doing this long enough that even if we were rivals when we first started, because we both wanted the same accolades and achievements, and we're both fighting each other for it. At some point, you're like, well, you know what? All these guys, they don't remember the good old days, and we can sort of reminisce about those years. And so I think that Tiger and Phil actually became pretty close, but I think what Phil did last year pissed off a lot of people in golf, pissed off Tiger Woods, and Tiger has made no bones about the fact that he is not a fan of all the live guys right now. So I would say it's probably more Phil than anybody.
And doesn't it feel like Bryson, of all the live guys, is kind of his right hand man, Phil's on that tour? So he kind of reiterates, hammers down like what they're doing. We're progressive, the YouTube stuff. I can do whatever I want. Because it felt like Tiger years ago at that President's Cup, Phil too, they kind of were drawn to Bryson, where a lot of guys didn't like him because they're kind of golf nerds at heart too. And he was just kind of unique. And now he's been, Bryson, I think, said last week that he just doesn't even text me back anymore.
Yeah, he did say that. Look, I think we made too much out of the Brooks Koepka eye roll at Kiowa a couple of years ago when Bryson was walking past, but that's essentially the response that most people have to Bryson now, and that includes his fellow players. Bryson says something about, his distance. Bryson says something about technology. Bryson says something about live, and everyone just kind of rolls their eyes. It's not, man, I hate that guy. It's not, what a jerk. It's okay. Just kind of roll your eyes at him, and um, so I think it's probably more, if we're talking hatred, more hatred for Phil and more eye rolls for Bryson.
What's the biggest surprise to not make the cut?
You hear that, Sobel?
Yeah, I heard him. Thanks, James. Let's see. Biggest surprise to not make the cut. I'm trying to think about who's down there on my ranking. Look, Cam Smith, based on everything he was talking about in the interview room yesterday, is a full fade from me. Missing the cut is top 50 and ties make the cut this week. There's only 88 players in the field. You throw in the Sandy Lyles and the Larry Mizes and a couple
Fred
guys
Couples.
like that, and Fred Couples, and a few of the amateurs who probably aren't up to it. There's probably like 78 like legitimate, like real professional golfers, and so you've got to only have to beat about 3/4 of the field to make the cut. So I don't know that I'd say Cam Smith to miss the cut, but if I'm placing a bet, that might be what it is right now. I mean, I'm just trying to think of something that's going to give you a nice plus money bet, sort of a quote unquote long shot to miss the cut. Cam Smith might be at the top of that list for me right now. I'm not saying that he's going to miss it, but I'm saying there could be value on that play.
When you look a lot of the younger Americans like that haven't played here very much, Homa miscut last year, Cam Young, it's just Colin Morikawa is a guy that he's just been off a couple times. Now he's had success here. Now this wouldn't be a surprise, but what if Phil is just terrible? I mean, it's not like he misses the cut by a shot, but is with the Lyles and the Freddie Couples, like he's 77, 78, because based on his work with Liv, I don't know how anyone would think he would be remotely competitive beside that he's been playing this place for 25 years.
Oh, I think it's very possible that Phil has a terrible week. I mean, look, we did a podcast yesterday for the Action Network where Evan Abrams, our director of research, was given some stats, and he said the public's favorite long shot play this week is Phil Mickelson. I just started laughing. I'm like, why? What are we doing here? He's played 3 events on Live so far this year. he's gone in descending order. He started in 27th place, then 32nd and 41st. His scrambling, I mean, look, if there's one thing that Phil did better than anybody else over the 25 years of sort of the Phil era, was he could get up and down from a garbage can. I mean, this is a guy that could, have a tight lie at Augusta, throw it way up in the air with a flop shot and land it 2 feet away and tap in. His scrambling on live so far this year, 57.89%. He ranks 34th out of 48 players on that tour. It's just, he's not good right now. I'm not saying he can never get good again. I'm not saying he can't improve. It's just right now, Phil Mickelson is not playing good golf.
Okay, we got that was from 15 below zero. I want to thank him for that question. Next one's from Andrew Sampson. Rahm is to win the Masters is the best bet on the board. Sobel and John, what are your thoughts on that as a bet?
Yeah, all in. Love it. He's my favorite play. I will have just a little bit on. I mentioned Sungjae Im, he's about 35. I mentioned Shane Lowry at 60, but I think when you have a guy that you like who's a single digit number, who's at 9-1, it's hard to chase too many. You don't really want to fill out that card with 10 other guys when you've got a guy who's 9-1. It's okay when you've got 10 guys who are all triple digits, but you can't have a guy who's a single digit number and then say, oh, and I'm also going to have this, and this. That's how golf betting Twitter works, John, is guys go, you know what? I like Scotty this week. I'm going to bet Scotty and Rory and Rahm and JT. And, for a long shot, I'm thinking maybe Cantlay. And you're like, yeah, no kidding. But they get to pat themselves on the back. They get, hey, good job. We hit another winner here. That is not what I will recommend to anybody. But Jon Rahm is indeed my favorite play on the board as far as an outright. I get that it's a short number, but I like everything about him. He was in the interview room earlier today. I was doing Inside the Ropes on Sirius XM, PGA Tour Live. And we went to the interview. He sounded like a guy. Look, he wasn't impolite. He wasn't short with anybody, but he sounded like a guy who was like, hey, man, just get me the first tee on Thursday. I'm ready to roll.
I don't know if you've had a chance yesterday to get out on the course, but obviously talking to these guys, the changing of the tees, like specifically 13, is that going to directly benefit guys like Jon Rahm, Rory McIlroy?
I would think so. I mean, look, we keep talking about all this stuff. Roll the ball back, move tees back. The advantage now is to the longer hitters. Zach Johnson does not get an advantage when we move the tee box back 20 yards. So he doesn't go, okay, cool. Well, now everyone's going to lay up. I know DJ said he's going to lay up. I'll still believe it when I see it. But no, you're giving more of an advantage to the bigger hitters out there. And so I've got to believe that some of these guys are going to go for it still. It's gonna be like
Morikawa then. Morikawa probably the best short hitter on tour. To give you red flaggers is still a second shot golf course.
I mean, look, Zach Johnson once laid up on every par 5 here. That was 16 years ago when won the golf tournament. I think we make too much of the fact that, hey, if you go for it, you're gonna make eagle, and if you don't go for it, you're gonna make a bogey. Like, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah,
we all know that. In some respects, I love it when a guy lays up to a good number. These guys are so good with their wedges. You're definitely not going to make a bogey, and you're probably going to put yourself in a good position to make a birdie. Whereas when you go for it, you might hit one in that creek guarding the green. All of a sudden, you're in some trouble, and you got to drop on a weird lie. And I mean, there's a lot of stuff that can go wrong. So I've never had a problem with a guy laying up out here. I know all the, everybody who's watching on TV and watching here at the golf course. Let's go for it. Well, that's not your money on the line. That's not your title hopes on the line. So I don't have a problem with anybody, especially a ball striker like Colin Morikawa. If he has to lay up to 80 yards every day, and he's got an 80-yard wedge shot in, my guess is over 4 rounds he'll play it in 2 under. So there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, he's not Sobel or Middlekauff there with a wedge in his hand,
Just absolutely. You might get up and down with it. I'm topping one right into that creek right there.